Hello, hello, hello. Let's get the microphone test out of the way here. Let me know if you can hear me across the various chats. We have three public chats going, or three public streams, one chat that I'm actually able to watch. But we have the x.com stream, we have the YouTube stream, and the Twitch stream. If you can let me know if you can hear me across those various public streams. I know you guys in the private streams, which are the same streams, there's no difference, just people that need to connect in a different way in order to watch because they cannot access these particular streaming platforms from where they are. I know you guys can hear me. Let me know if everyone else can hear me okay, and we're going to get rolling here in just a moment. Okay, it appears everyone can hear me okay across the various chats. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get the music under control here, and we're going to get rolling right into today's analysis. I love Fridays. Let's get this down and under control. Pause it on my side. And let's roll into today's live stream. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is January 26th, 2024, and we are going to be looking at Bitcoin, of course, today. We're going to be evaluating this bounce in the context of what we talked about in yesterday's pre-recorded video and pretty much all of this week's live streams, so the Monday and Wednesday live stream. So we're going to follow up with all of that. We are going to start with the support and resistance chart here that is typically shown on the Bitcoin in 60 seconds shorts videos here on YouTube and on x.com under the short section on YouTube, and typically pinned to my profile when I do upload one to the CryptoLandyX.com, formerly Twitter profile there. For those of you in the other chats, that being Twitch and X, I would suggest if you want to chat with others and or ask any questions, go ahead and head over to the YouTube channel, the Landy's Crypto Corner YouTube channel. It is linked in the profiles there and or the descriptions, as that's really the only one that I can watch. I'm only one person. I don't have anybody else helping me with this. So if you do want to jump in there and chat, you're free to do so. I do suggest, well, in order to chat, you will need to subscribe. That's to keep the bots at bay as they were coming in and spamming the live streams with garbage. Let's go ahead and roll into the Bitcoin analysis here. We can see that on the support and resistance chart, as noted on Tuesday, Bitcoin came down and hit our monthly level at 38.5. And, well, it came in $1 above there, to be fair, so we did miss it by $1. Anyway, we had the basically a retest of this prior resistance after Bitcoin moved through. We come up, make new highs, hit all those monthlies up top, and the monthly bear market swing high at 48,240 with that nice wick to 49K. Well, we then saw the early front run on Monday, and we talked about this during the live stream on Monday, that the weekly monthly zone was likely to get front run in the lower term timeframes. Specifically, we were looking at the 15-minute. The volume did come in, bounced price from there. Very next day on Tuesday, came down and hit our monthly right on the nose. So the criteria for this move to set a swing low and then a closing low and then head further up, well, it's looking as though it's going to be confirmed today. Obviously, there is about 5 hours and 30 minutes to go, a little less than that. So there is a lot that can happen between now and then, but it is looking very likely that at minimum a swing low will be set. We'll see if a closing low will be set. In this case, you know, we have hit the primary upside targets that we've been talking about. The weekly here at 41.8 to 42K. This was discussed in yesterday's Staring at Charts video. And, well, came in a little bit above 42,151. May even push up further if it can reclaim this weekly here at 41.8. It does need to get past this wick high at 42,160 to go test the weekly here at around 43 to 43.2. And then above there, we need to see Bitcoin starting to close back above 43.5 to 6. Above there, we can raise our targets to support and resistance levels on the daily, somewhere around 44,000 to 44.5, 45,000 area at the wicks. Above there, the monthly at 45,000. And of course, above there, back up to 47,000 by the closing highs. And if it can get above there, we're looking at a run to that monthly bear market swing high at 48,240 to the wick high at 49 to 50K. Possibly more. Obviously, if Bitcoin closes above there, we're looking into the mid to low $50,000 initially and then come back to it later. We can also see that if Bitcoin does reject in and around these areas, we do need to be aware of the closing low coming in at 39,525. And below there, if it does break down from there, we're looking right back to that weekly monthly zone at 39 to 38.5. And if we do start to see any closes or wicks below there, I would be targeting somewhere around this big weekly zone where these closes are coming in. Roughly, 37.7 to 38K below there, then we're looking down into this zone between the two weeklies, all the way down to 36.2 to 3 as a possibility. Of course, if that breaks down, there is monthly support directly below. This was a big area that was already tested as resistance, and then support again at the monthly weekly. This is another one that hit it. This one was to within 3 cents, 34,758. 64, and the weekly support was at 34,758.67, so 3 cents. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful levels. If we did see some sort of a breakdown of this structure, this being what is starting to paint as a deviation of the range, this range essentially being on a close from 41,230 to around $45,000. This primary range with a deviation to the upside, deviation to the downside. This is pretty normal Bitcoin price action as it stands. Could it come up further and take out highs and then paint a lower high than, this particular high up here, just shy of that $47,000 monthly, and then head back down and distribute? Sure. That's not the first thing I'm looking for, though. In fact, if we come over here, let's go ahead and actually do a few things first. Let's go ahead and look at the Bollinger Bands, and then we'll get into some of the other stuff. But Bitcoin closing above the lower first standard deviation will create a swing low structure. If it can close above this open here of this candle at 41,560 or so, it's 550, 560, depending on your exchange for that open, then we will see a closing low set. And as long as Bitcoin is closing above the lower first, this weekly is a viable area here at 41.8, all the way to the basis at around 42,750. Above there, then we're looking at the weekly at around 43 to 43.2. And of course, we need to see that high taken out at 43.5 to 6 that we just talked about. If we do see that area breached, especially on a close, then I would start to look up to the upper first standard deviation even. That is coming in just shy of $45,000. So somewhere in the upper $44,000 to $45,000 region, to the monthly at 45.5. Of course, above there, we just talked about this. The upper second standard deviation is actually right there at that monthly overhead at $47,000 still. Above there, we do have some room to the upper third, which is coming in just above the highs here at 49K. But essentially, I would still take above the upper second, the monthly swing at around 48,240 to the wick high at 49K to 50K or so. We can see that the upper third is coming in the lower $49,000 region. But if Bitcoin does start to close back above the basis, upper first, upper second, we will see this start to resume its upside angle and likely head towards that $50,000 region. Now, what I will say is Bollinger Bands are still pretty wide set here. So, the next move that I would be looking for is wherever we see a high put in on the daily again, swing high at minimum, then I would be looking for potential higher lows. So wherever we see a swing high come in, we just look back down to supports Bollinger Band volatility levels, that kind of stuff, for the possibility of areas of interest, as well as, a higher low structure. Equal lows are fine, and even lower lows on wicks that close back inside the monthly there at 38.5 are acceptable as well, as that would create some nice bullish divergence. And that is really what I want to see. I want to see bullish divergence, multiple drives of bullish divergence in this case, begin to form. I'm not looking for this to necessarily just go straight up, go through the upper second, and just continue on into the $50,000 region and above right away. It's not my first take. I mean, it can happen. We have seen this before, but it's not my first take with the bands being this wide set. I at least want to see some compression of the bands. And we will, in fact, see compression of the Bollinger Bands if Bitcoin can hang around this basis band for a little while, or anywhere between the lower first and upper first. If it does hang out there for a couple days, we'll likely see some very quick compression of the Bollinger Bands, and then we come back to it for the expansion phase. And in that case, if we see the bands compress within this wider range and the bands are within it, then we start looking to the, lower first, lower second, upper first, upper second for re-expansion into overhead resistances or downside support. So we saw the expansion to the downside into support, nice bounce off of it, and that lower second standard deviation, which I will remind you is going to act as it's going to act in one of two ways. It's either going to act as a reversal region, as it has, or it's going to act as continuation. So we did see continuation on the first candle through the lows here, right? So we did get continuation after breaching the lower second standard deviation, but then we just step it down to the next area of support, and that's where the weekly monthly area came in. We saw that area tagged, bounced off of it. Now it's looking to reclaim that lower first, get some mean reversion back to the basis, as it's doing right now as we speak. When looking at BBWP, we do see that, I had mentioned this in the live streams earlier this week, and I mentioned it in yesterday's Staring at Charts pre-recorded video, that BBWP on the daily is under the moving average. All right. So that would mean that if Bitcoin had headed down to that lower second again and or closed below it, we might see BBWP up over the moving average, but unless the moving average got a positive slope, we'd be looking for the end of that move, probably the final wave down in the lower term timeframes. In this case, it is mean reversion back to the upside. So what we want to see is Bitcoin hanging out between the lower first and upper first towards that basis band, get a nice cool down in volatility. Now, the counterpoint to that is that this is still in an expansion to the downside on the 2-day, but it's price volatility expansion to the downside with a nice bounce off of supports through that lower second standard deviation. So it has acted as a reversal. In this case, I want to see this 2-day close today and begin to curl down that BBWP underneath the moving average, and then Bitcoin to start normalizing in the range. Probably see it range around for a little bit, and then we come back to and evaluate it on the lower term timeframes below the 2-day. Now the 2-day is pivoted at $41,000, so we will get, or we already have, an initial cross to the upside. We're likely to see this complete the cross in today's closure, especially if it closes somewhere around 42. If it's more towards the pivot at 41, 41 and a half, 41.2 or something like that, we're going to be looking at this more than likely having to take another 2-day period before we get both the K and the D read facing up from the oversold zone. This is a wonderful signal, especially with a bounce off of the lower second, kind of indicating that Bitcoin has a high likelihood to test, not just the basis here at around 43 to the weekly at 43.2, but likely that upper first to upper second area when looking purely at bands. Now, of course, there is support and resistance levels on the daily and the 2-day there that we need to be aware of. From the 2-day perspective above the basis, you could see the closes are coming in there right around that 44K region that we pointed out on the daily as well. When looking at the daily Stoke, we can see that it is facing up, and it is sitting there with a pivot at around 39,275. So that will come up today, probably 39.5 or so. Maybe a little bit more aggressive because of the bounce here. I do think it's going to lag. So as long as Bitcoin's around, trading above and closing candles above 39, 3 to 5, this move has some legs to keep bouncing. Now, when going to a regular chart here, like our streaming chart that we typically are looking at, markup live here, the swing low is going to be set if Bitcoin can close above the lower first here, specifically this wick high at 40,530, something I spoke about in yesterday's video as well. If we are to see a trend break, that's a swing trend break. If we want to see a low set, then we need to see this guy here closed above at 41,553. That would solidify this low. Looking likely here, but there is still plenty of time before close of day. The next thing that we need to be aware of, is we could throw a swing chart. You could use a Gann swing, or there's plenty of swing indicators. They're all free. This is a free one as well. I just picked a random one. What we can see here on the swing chart is that, it's not calling this last area a swing high because the low did not go lower than this wick. So it's technically going to call this swing up here the swing high that it needs to break the downtrend or get a downtrend breaker bar. And that is at 41,858 at the weekly. So you can use that criteria as well. I'm looking at the lower term time frame swing. So the swing low is set now. We're not looking at the swing high being broken. We're looking at the swing low being set. Swing low is set here at 40,530. Closing low is set at 41,553. And then you can take the downtrend break swing high here at 41,860 or so, right at the weekly. So if we do see a break of this level here, this is your downtrend breaker bar. Now, this is just a very simple way of evaluating trend. So swing low set here above the lower first, also confluent with this wick high, and then the closing low set here at the 41.5.5, and then the downtrend swing break bar closing price would need to come in above that 41,860 weekly. So you can say I just call it 41.8, but it's basically just the weekly. We are looking at all of that possibly happening today. So this is what I'm going to be watching coming into close are these specific levels. They don't all need to happen at the same time, but if they do, it's encouraging for further upside at minimum to go and test somewhere around the basis band. We can see that where Bitcoin is trading right now, it's recovered the closing lows over here as well as the wicks, and it's working on this low right here at $42,000. This is a nice reclaim if it can complete it, I should say. I'm struggling to get my words out today. My apologies. All right, so looking really good so far on this bounce. Again, what we do need to be aware of is a trend break now that comes back down and takes out the closing low at 39,530 and then subsequently the wick low at 38,500 at the monthly. So what would that look like? Well, we have the swing chart on already, so let's go ahead and kind of spec it out. This is just, simply marking up potential. Let's say, it comes up here and gets to the upper first and then comes back down and breaches this close and this low. Well, then we're looking at this as being a distributive pattern, right? This would be distribution. This is just an example. It doesn't have to go up that high. It could stop literally right here and then it would look like distribution. Typically, you want to see it come up a little bit higher. Even to the upper second, you want to see it. And the criteria for distribution is that now it's got to come back down and break this closing low and wick low. So again, the key area to watch to the downside, the danger zone, if you will, is going to be the wick low here. We'll put this in orange, and then we'll put the closing low and the wick low. So the closing low in orange and the wick low in red. This would be danger if we saw price trading back down here at 39,530 and closing candles there. And then, of course, we're looking at a distribution pattern playing out. Not necessarily a very big one, by the way. It would still be targeting those weeklies at 37.7 at 36.2 to 3. But that's, where we would start looking at this wick low again, is on any closes back below 39,530. So I'm still not looking for that as the first possibility. And I also want to make sure that I note for you that it would be closes below this wick low at 38,500. All right, closes below there would be considered a distribution pattern. So we can see equal lows. We can even see a lower low on a wick, but if it closes inside that 38,500, then it's not considered a distribution pattern. In fact, that's where we could potentially see, we got a trend break and then, equal lows or higher lows that then, take out the most recent swing high. And in this case, the most recent swing high is going to be a trend break swing high. We still want to see that close come in above that weekly there at 41,850 to 860 area. I'm still stuck on the 38.5. Sorry. I hope that makes sense. I hope that you were expecting this. We've been talking about this potential for quite some time. And hey, what do you know? Yet again, it's come right down to the areas that we talked about. Price has been playing nearly perfectly for quite a long time. And this is, going on 2.5 years that price has been just absolutely stellar in terms of its key levels and playing very technically. So none of this is magic. It's, trend, support and resistance, volatility, and momentum. It's the 4 key pillars to trading. It will never let you down. And if you define your criteria well, like we've been doing, you're going to nail these every single step of the way, step by step. So it's all a matter of creating your trading plan surrounding it and how you're going to handle yourself emotionally when things get to certain areas of interest. So for many traders, that's the tough part. It's not the fact that it hit a monthly level nearly to the dollar. It's more of how to trade it off of that area because, there was the potential that it could have went lower. There's the potential that it could have raced right back to the top of the range, right? But defining your criteria and the specific criteria, like we just pointed out, for setting a swing low, closing low, and a trend break, that's how you define criteria. And then you can trade based off of that stuff. So the next thing we need to see, obviously, on the daily is higher lows and for the trend break to turn into a trend shift. All right. That's going to be kind of the bulk of my analysis today, believe it or not. One of the things that I will do here real quick is we will pull a fib for this move now that I'm pretty confident that this is going to not only set the swing low, but very likely going to set the closing low. I want you to note that this is headed right back to the 618 and has already poked at it. And this is at, maybe it hasn't poked at it yet, just shy of the 618 here at 42,250. If it does trade above there to the basis at around that 43, well, you can see that the 50% is right there at just under this next swing high up here, coming in at 43,480. All right, above there, you can note that probably it closed today. It's not quite there yet, but the upper first is skating right across the 382. Depending on how you pull this fib, that would be a 618. I pulled it from the 1 to the 0 being the high, break the 0, then we're headed up, right? All right, same for the downside. But in this case, let's say it rejected the 618, it went into distribution, right? Breaks the lows, closes below the wick low, closes below the lower second. Well, what are we looking at as a big area of interest to the downside? 1272 is right there at the daily lower third at $36,000. Again, that's right in that weekly zone, 36.2 to 37.7, two major weekly closes. There's support underneath there, obviously at around $35,000, where we see the 1414 is coming in just under 30 at 38, 34,800. Geez. Which is a weekly at 34,750 to $35,000. So weekly to monthly support area over here that was flipped. You can see that even pulling this fib, how perfectly that lines up with this wick low over here. And you can see how the one spot that was just tagged lines up with those wicks there at the monthly at 38.5. So, when there's professionals in the market, which there has been since about 2017, you're going to see a lot of stuff like this. It's been very, very easy, quite honestly. And a lot of people make it a lot harder than it really is by adding a lot of other outside complications to their technical analysis. And I'm going to encourage you not to do that. The narratives don't matter. The chart is going to drive the narrative that you see. It's chart first, narrative second. All right. It's not narrative first, chart second. Even on the highs here, we could see that coming into the ETF approvals, momentum was getting stretched out. It was expanded through the upper second and third area. Could it have run a little bit further? Yeah, but it was likely going to reverse. There was a lot of bearish divergence there, as you can see from all the way back here. I mean, this bearish divergence has been building since October of 2023. So this was nothing unexpected. And it's very much something that we had been talking about for quite a long time as possibilities. Now, if we were to pull this the other way, let's say Bitcoin just rips through all the levels, takes out the highs, and just wants to run. Well, that's also a possibility. Let's look at a fib pull from this move down to the top side. Obviously, this is going to line up at the same levels, but it's flipped like the 618 coming in here, just around that upper first was the 382, right around 44,750 to $45,000, where that, it's 44,900. You can say $45,000, especially if Bitcoin keeps pushing up. All right. If Bitcoin was going to rip through the highs and tag $50,000, the next big area is going to be in the mid to low $50,000 region. That's at 52.5 to around $54,000 to $55,000 at the 1272 for 52.5, and then somewhere around $54,000 to $55,000 for the 1414. Above there, you can see that the 1618 is coming in at $57,000 to the 1786 coming in at around 60. It's actually at 59,446, but we just call it 60 for now. We can refine these if Bitcoin starts to break towards those levels. I do want to point out where these levels fall, for the daily here. You'll note that Bitcoin traded just below where this 1272 is coming in from this type of a fib pull. 1414s to 1272 is right there at this distribution structure. All right, so I want you to note this particular distribution. We'll get rid of the fib for just a moment because it looks very familiar, doesn't it? This is what I'm not saying that this is how Bitcoin's going to play out, but we had the nice move up to new highs. We had a range form, and then some higher highs up there to $69,000. And then we had some lower lows that came right back into range. Now on the daily here, it rejected the lower first, and it also was, very, very heavily downsloped basis band. But you can see that it did come back in and regain the range, but then it came down and it did what? It started playing around the lows. So it was this low right here that when this low broke, well, it tried to play in that range, but once it broke right here at this candle here on February 26th of 2021, it tried to then regain this range, came back down. Once it broke this low, it wicked way below. It got bought back up, gave everyone hope, and then the next candle distributed. Okay, next candle kicked off that distribution, and that's what I'm talking about with distribution. that's not my first take on what I'm seeing in current price action, but I did want to point that out because I did think it was relevant to describe what a distribution would look like. That was a daily distribution inside of a higher term time frame distribution that occurred later. So that's not necessarily what I'm looking for in this particular range or this move. If anything, I'd be looking for Bitcoin to kind of hang out and start, if it did distribute, it's distributing to this structure over here, in my opinion. It would not be something where I'd be looking for massive downside price action, to be quite honest. In fact, the 1618 is coming in right here at this key level. This was a $33,000 area, and this particular level was, the wick lows that were broken prior to a daily redistribution structure that led into, well, the massive downside from Luna, and then of course the final leg down from FTX. So, it's I'm not necessarily looking for that first. I mean, if anything, the 1414 catching this wick low over here, right around that weekly monthly zone, would be the next big area that I'd be looking for. If we did see a scenario where we get a distributive structure here, but right now we want to enjoy the bounce while it's happening. And one of the main reasons why I bring that up is we have the daily basis band down here, or the weekly basis band down here, coming in at 36 3 to 400. Again, that's right in a weekly zone. So 36 36 300 is this low right here on a close. You can see how that lines up with this basis band. I can make this a little bit easier for you. I did have some of you ask me to that when I'm not specifically putting down some of this stuff that it's hard to see on the stream. So let's go ahead and is it scale? Status lines. Is it status line scale? It's got to be under scales, right? I'm not finding it. Here you go. It's under canvas now. Let's go ahead and turn the crosshairs to line. So you can see this low right here lines up perfectly with that basis. And of course, the wick low is coming in at around $33,000 even. That's the 1618 of that fib pull that we just saw. Now, when evaluating like where Bitcoin's going to go on the weekly is pretty easy. If it's trading and closing below the upper first standard deviation on the weekly, which is currently coming in at 42,650. Now this will move up, probably 42.7, 42.8, maybe even 43 in the next close here, especially if Bitcoin trades towards it and or above it. But if Bitcoin closes below it and then the daily's trading below it, then the lows of this range, down here to 40K and the wick low to 38.5 near these supports here is going to become a viable target, especially down to the in between the weeklies at 37.7 to 36.2, which again that's this weekly down here at 36.2, 37.7's over here. But the basis is the most viable target, and this of course will move up likely into the $37,000 region, especially if Bitcoin closes above it. So that is my first take on potential downside on a daily distribution. If it were to get below the basis on a weekly and close below it, well, then it's in between some of the close opens here, and that would make available some of the $35,000 levels at the monthly, 34,750 at the weeklies, so on and so forth, back down to the $30,000 level, which you can see is where the lower first standard deviation is coming in. And that would be the next big area. But the criteria would have to be met. It would have to close below the basis band on the weekly while breaking down from horizontal support and resistance. We are not currently seeing that, but I will let you know that the weekly is going to exit the overbought zone. Not a big deal. If Bitcoin closes the weeklies back above, 46.6, 47K, this will turn back up in the bullish control zone of a regular Stochh. Now, of course, this is not a Stochh RSI. This is a regular Stochh, which measures close over close price action, not velocity of RSI. The other thing to note here is that Bitcoin is still in the bullish control zone on the weekly for RSI. This does mean that, well, price is still bullish. I mean, until it's dropping at least, the 50 read, price is pretty damn bullish. Not really too much more to say in that regard. We're of course going to get into the end of month stuff. We have the monthly closing on Tuesday. So on Monday's live stream, I'll be talking about the monthly close, what to look for. And then, of course, on Wednesday, following the monthly close, we'll evaluate what's going on. And we will see, what remains for the 2-month. We'll take a look at what to kind of start looking for coming into the quarterly, and at least prepping, a little bit early prep. But the 2-month will be ending in February, so that's going to be the next one to look for. We can just kind of reference that. We've ran the upper first standard deviation on the 2-month chart basis coming in at 35,370. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. Again, another area right around that monthly at 35 and above that monthly. So looks beautiful. And of course, that's this 2-month close open as well before the all-time highs up there. This is a big consolidation structure in the longer term timeframes of the 2-month. You could see that we got the expansion to compression. It's still compressing. So this is when this does break out of the all-time highs. This is going to be a very big move from the 2-month. We can see that the pivot is at that 26,525. And of course, like I said, we'll revisit that on Monday and talk a little bit more about it. I think that's all I wanted to say on Bitcoin. I'm forgetting something. I know I'm forgetting something. We can always come back to it. Oh, a little bit of wow, isn't price action beautiful for a moment. The 15-minute. We had the breakdown that, the wicks below the weekly here, the breakdown through the weekly, the retest a couple of times on the 15-minute, and then, headed right down into our zone to on that 1 15-minute candle, nearly perfectly tap on the monthly right there. It did pull up just shy of it, right? Okay. Give me a little bit of leeway. It was about $10 front run of the monthly there, but that is well within the margin of error. And then on the other side of that, price action appreciation, we can just look at how beautiful this was, running right back to the weekly here, and you can see the initial doji selling off from that weekly before a nice little reclaim deviation, and then a move above it. Tried to sell it down, hold support. Now it's kind of hanging out. In the lower term timeframes, it's fine if it dips below, as long as it meets the criteria that we talked about for setting the swing low, closing low, and then of course breaking the swing high on a close, or the swing lower high on a close, and thus we will already have a higher high swing. So just need to see all of that confluence come together at once. How beautiful, man. That's just, I'm nerding out because price, and I'm still amazed by it. By the way, this never gets old. I've been doing this for a very long time. You guys have sat here with me, and at some point I used to stream for like 3-4 hours a day. And some of you back then, the channel was private. We were just, a couple of buddies hanging out, looking at charts, but this never gets old. Hitting the levels that you're looking for, hitting the support and resistance, and just playing out technically in the way that you expect it to, never gets old, no matter how long you've been doing this. So if you ever find yourself experiencing a little bit of boredom in the markets, just go through your charts and appreciate how beautiful price action is. All right. That is going to do it for the technical analysis side of things as it relates to the charts. Let's go ahead and reference what I've been talking about a little bit with you guys. And that is the something I showed yesterday that was also really interesting to me. In the very early hours of this particular move, when today's candle opened, the Friday candle open, which was yesterday for me, we saw that, I had been pointing out that when Bitcoin gets down to a 0.88 to a zero point 0.9 on the taker buy sell ratio, that, it typically tends to bounce. We start to see, bids start to outflow those asks in terms of the ticker buy sell ratio. And the start of today's candle, we saw this at an extreme read on the lows. It was all the way down at a 7.4 on the ticker buy sell ratio. This update's live, by the way. Now it's at a 1.08, which, by the way, is nearing an area that's like, this needs to cool down a little bit. It's not quite at extremes, but it's getting there. About a 1.12 is where we see the real extremes on the taker buy sell ratio indicators. And in this case, it's got more to run. It's got about 0.4 to run before it hits the 1.2. You can see the tops coming in here around 1.13. And you can see it hit much higher levels in between the daily closes. So for instance, this started out all the way down at a 0.74 and even dipped down to like a 0.62. And how you read this is when Bitcoin was trading at that level this morning, that was on the low, or in the early goings of, not this morning, but the early goings of today's candle. It was around the low of the candle, so it was at 39,800. So it wasn't even near the actual low on a swing. It was still well above, $300, but well above the actual close open down here that was already put in. So we saw the close open and the rise in opens, right? We had a close open that was even, but we saw two rises in open price. And then we had a dip down below, didn't even pass this low here at 39.5, which was a retest of this close open down on the lows. And it wasn't anywhere near the swing low. And, the way to interpret that is, when you see the taker buy sell ratio getting down there, but price is not, moving in that direction, it's usually a counter signal, meaning that whoever's selling at this level or shorting at this level is likely trying to short it back to the lows and lower, and is probably going to get wrecked. So shorts are going to get wrecked. I mentioned that. I love that I actually got that one on video, because every other time that I've tried to catch it, it's already reversed while I've been trying to record it. But in this case, it played out exactly as I described it. What we saw was these particular, it was right here. Price was headed down. Ticker buy sell ratio got to extreme low reads, like a 0.64, 0.74 is where it was kind of hovering. And they couldn't break this consolidation. So when price moved up, we saw that, OI got wiped a little bit further on the wick there. And the green candle wiped out OI back down to like 10.4 billion. And then the asks, started, we were lifting the offer. Basically, the bids outweighed the asks, and OI has thus increased back to kind of the normalized level that it was at for some time. We can see that it is above the consolidation here at that 41.8 level right now in terms of OI and price. There's not a one-to-one correlation, but, in the lower term timeframes, I would be expecting a little bit of an accumulation and move back down. It's more of, does it drop the $41,000 low on like the hourly or something like that? If it did that, then I'd be looking for it to run back to, 40,000 to 40,500 or so. And taking it $500 at a time is probably going to be the way to go. We can see that we've had quite the cool down here. from the Bitcoin bull bear market cycle indicator. And I do want to note that this can cool down and then rise back up and cool down and rise back up and still remain bullish. So still bull market, still indicating that. Um, you know, even when it dips into bear market, well, in the context of an uptrend, it's typically going to mean that it's going to get picked up and likely keep marching on. I also want to note this chart here because I have pointed this one out before. This is their IFP. This is their inter-exchange flow indicator. And anytime it gets underneath the 90-day moving average, it's pretty accurate at calling tops into the bottoms. It gets above the 90-day and it comes back up. But as we've seen this in the context of a bull market back in 2016. So it turns red. 90-day, the IFP gets under the 90-day moving average, turns red, comes back down, finds support, and then turns green again, and boom, up and out. So it ends up being a deviation. Now, price was so much lower, and the indicator was so young at this point that I would suggest that this is going to reset in a beautiful higher low fashion. Technically, it's a deviation. This would actually be an IFP deviation, which we don't see quite often. This would be one of the first ones outside of the bearish deviation for IFP up here at the highs. So we had the $65,000 all-time high. Once that lower high came in, actually on the low there, it turned down both IFP and the moving average. And then we saw a higher high on price. IFP, no, it was technically a lower high at that point before the higher high. So there wasn't actually a divergence there. This would be a legit divergence. Now, I wish I could zoom in on this chart. They don't have that enabled, but there's a little bit of a low set here before the most recent highs on IFP. And this has come down below that low. And if it sets a low here on price action, that would be a bullish divergence on IFP. Likely to see it get back above the moving average here soon. As soon as Bitcoin breaks out above that $49,000 high, that would be a bullish divergence, likely to send things, above that 48,240 and into the all-time high zone. $50,000, probably the high above it that was coming in around 50,000 to 50, the low to mid 50s, and then above there, obviously the all-time high. But still red. But I'm going to watch this for when it turns green, because that is going to be a good indication of, this being a nice bullish divergence. And with all of the other confluences we already have, I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the crypto quants version of their bands, their crystal ball bands. I think somebody had replied to them and called them crystal bull bands, meaning BULL, not Bollinger Bands. In this case, the indicator is freaking out a little bit here, but it's pretty much caught every single cycle low and every single cycle top. Obviously, the cycle tops usually deviate outside of the top side, but I wanted to show you where this has updated to. So cycle top currently has ticked up to $89,000. This will continue to move up day after day, and cycle bottom is now in and around the $22,900 or $23,000 area. So that has ticked up slightly over the past week or so. We're probably going to see the cycle top come in for this particular indicator. Reminder, this is log scale, so these deviations are big. To the downside, it was calling 17.2. We got 15.5. To the upside up here at the highs, it was calling for 57.5. Price got up to 65, right? So it's not exact. It is log scale. Those are pretty big deviations outside of it, but those are also good indications that, deviation below, you probably want to buy it and or right around it. And deviation above and or right on it, you probably are looking for sell signals and to sell or offload. In this case, it's if you were to put a midline, it's probably rejected right off the midline here. But this is likely going to end up somewhere at the end of January and early parts of February, somewhere around 95 over time, 90 to 95 on the top end. And we're likely going to see that cycle bottom start ticking up to the $25,000 area. Why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because on the weekly here, you know, $25,000 to $26,000 is this double low or equal lows. You know, lower lows on a swing and but closes inside the wicks. So for all intents and purposes, equal lows with bullish divergence, and then the higher low. So that was at, you know, 24,750 over here, 24,900 over here, and then 26,500 on the higher low on the weekly. So we're likely to see that bottom bear band move into that area pretty soon, which is pretty awesome. Pretty awesome confluence. I mean, obviously it's math, so it's going to work out that way anyway. It just matters, you know, how you interpret that particular data. All right, that is going to be it for Bitcoin. I do want to throw it over to the chats here and see what you guys are thinking. We'll also take a look at, in a moment here, we'll take a look at Grayscale, because I had mentioned on Wednesday, or it might have been Wednesday or Monday, like, just use your chart. Like, we don't need to know, like, when are they going to stop selling? We can see when this is going to happen, you know, or when is the selling going to slow down? We can see when it's going to happen on our chart, and we can predict these things. It's coming into an area of support at the lows and like all this other stuff. So we'll look at that in just a moment, but I do want to peruse the chats just for a second here. And while I'm doing so, I am going to throw on the tunes again. We're going to go for Azimuth. And just get a little bit of music in the background here while I take a look at the chats. Hello, No Name. Hello, Roka. Hello, me. Don is here. Bobby. Baba. Spin. Sam is here as well. And I see quite a few others hanging out in the chat that are not currently chatting. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Let's see. Hello, you beautiful people. Number go up. Yes, it is going up at the moment. Still in the context of a downtrend, trying to break that particular downtrend with a breaker bar. Trying to decide if Bitcoin will push towards 46. I hope that I helped you figure out the criteria for that. Spin. Bobby answered you as well. He gave his thoughts, which are pretty much in line with mine. All right. All this bumping for the monthly close after. After that, we see the real move. Yeah. We'll probably see the real move after, you know, coming into, you know, whether it's going to be, you know, this was a downside deviation of the range, consolidate, expand to the upside, you know, in February. Reminder, we are coming into the halving probably sometime around April. I think Bobby saying never gets old is probably the price action, how beautiful it is. Bobby says I enjoyed those streams. Yeah, those like 4-hour streams where I would just hang out and chart and explain. Yeah, because that's when I would explain to some of you guys that were new to trading and charting how to chart basics. Yep, and then everybody's just saying hi. Any questions, comments that you guys have on what we just talked about for the analysis before we get moving on? If so, go ahead and put it in the chats there. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. Jimmy says, don't forget about bonds. Okay, buddy. Thank you for reminding me. I did say that quite a bit on Wednesday, didn't I? Yeah, I will I will remember to look at bonds. You might have to remind me yet again. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and just look at Grayscale real quick here. We got GBTC right here. Oh, look at that. It's hanging out around its weekly upper first. Oh my God, are they going to die and distribute all of their Bitcoin holdings, and all the other players in the market are going to scoop it up? Highly unlikely. Have they taken a big hit to their holdings? Absolutely. But as you can see, they're back to trading at 37.58. Now, when we looked at this on Wednesday, yeah, it was on Wednesday. It was threatening to set a low. It was not closed at that time, but if it, got above the, if it closed above the, or started getting back above the lower first here at 35, we're looking for the basis. We saw a nice gap up today, obviously because of where Bitcoin is. Bitcoin's move off the lows here. It's now at 37.58, with the potential to go and retest that upper first standard deviation at 38 to 39, maybe even 40. If it does get above there, then we can start targeting the upper second around 40.69. Nice. Got to have the meme numbers, right? It's all of the markets, and the entire market is a meme. You thought that crypto was bad. No. You got to start getting into traditional markets where the real memes are. All right, upper third is up there by the local high, and at the close there, coming in at 42.25 to the actual high at 43.50. If Bitcoin were to start closing back above the upper second, I'd look for a swing of that and then continuation to the upside. This was a beautiful swing of the lows. No break below this low here at 33.95. And even then, it could have drawn down to like 31, 32 bucks, and it's fine. 31.50 down here. There's a lot of beautiful structure for it to hang on to. The momentum pivot is now $37. We're likely going to see this cross coming into next week. We have bullish divergence up there. If you caught it real quick, that is a hidden bull div. It is going to try to close above the moving average here. Bullish control zone is at 40 bucks. So again, we're looking at upper first, upper second as the next area for it to tag around, basically 39 to 40 bucks, maybe 41 to 42 if it can make it back to the high. Just beware, because this was a deviation of this low over here. Stayed inside the wick, through bullish divergence, full on momentum reset. This is probably going to mark the end of, not the end of outflows, but the big surge in outflows for them for at least a little bit. There's not really any point in looking at the others. They don't have enough history. DeFi does, but it's sparsely traded. It's doing the same thing, headed back to the basis in this case. Whereas, Grayscale's pushing above the basis right now, but the basis at around 51, 57 is likely for DeFi, which is tidal. And it's still futures. They didn't get their conversion in. So, but it's good. We got HODL down here. Nice gap up. IBIT, nice gap up. EasyBC, Franklin Templeton. They're doing a lot of really good work in education, by the way. They're a smaller player in this market right now, but they got some really good educational stuff for their investors, and just generally really good at explaining some of the complex topics as well. I've noticed that they also have a pretty fun social media team as well. They get the memes. Let's go ahead and take a look at Dixie. So currencies and bonds, we'll go to Dixie here. And oh, look at that. Dixie is consolidating above the upper first currently. If it does lose it, we can see that the basis has now ticked up to this little bit of a gap here. So right around that open at 102.77, 102.70 area. To be fair, it's kind of splitting the difference there at 102.80. If Bitcoin, this is not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is much better than Dixie. because Dixie is fake funny money. But in this case, below the upper first, we've got that basis as the main target, which is above this wick low. So if we did see the basis tagged, we also need to see it close below the wick low here at that 102.77, which was a strike right on this open. Then we're looking down to this lower first, which is coming in right at this close open at 102.22 to around 102, upper 101 area in this zone down here, where the lower second is likely going to end up at the end of today's close. If Dixie does take out its local high here at 103.81, I'd look for it to run somewhere around the upper second in the 104 region to 104.20 to 104.25 up here. That's these wicks over here. Above there, there is a close open here at 104.40 to around 104.50. That's the next big area. If it can get above there, then we're targeting somewhere around 105. That's the short term. We'll follow up with that on Monday. Momentum is not in favor right now of that, but we could see that area tested early next week if this does happen to hold the upper first and begin to push the upper second. That's 103.52 as the pivot. It's 5 cents below there, so it's going to be continuation if it closes below there in terms of downside momentum, but it is in a consolidation between the upper first and upper second bands, which is showing strength. So just because momentum is turned against it at the moment does not mean that that it's destined to fall back to its lows and lower. But the criteria is pretty clear for moving up here on Dixie. Let's go ahead and look at gold. Gold is still hanging out around this 2016 level. Nice daily consolidations. It's having trouble with this last low that it put in, selling off from it today and yesterday after hitting it in the lower term time frames. If it does close below the lower first, then the lows here by the lower second are in play again. And we do have a bearish shift in the basis band, meaning that even if it did get above the 2033 and break these wicks, it's probably going to run into initial resistance around the upper first, upper second by the highs. So that's coming in at 2050 and then 2060 to 70 area at these wicks. And then we come back to it if it did head up that way. If it just green candled its way through that area, though, then we're looking up to around 2080, 2100 and beyond as a higher likelihood. But we still want to see a downtrend break. This could potentially paint a higher low as long as it's above this low here at 2005, with the wick low coming in at 2001 by the lower second. I would actually like to see this retested and then head up, but that's not necessarily going to happen. But if it does break down below there, then we start targeting over here by around that $2,000 again. In the shorter term, there's also this is a high that was not painted, so this was a swing high close open. There was a high just below it though at 1992, of course, to the lower third at 1990. Below there, we're looking to 1980 to around 1960 to 65. This higher low over here on a swing that also set a higher low close. So that would be the criteria for the upside and downside on gold. We can see that, it's trying. 2021 is the momentum pivot. It is facing down right now. It is bearish neutral on RSI at the moment as well. If it does get a low set, though, it will be another drive of hidden bullish divergence. Bearish control zones coming in at 1986, so right around the areas that we were just looking at. Midline 2030 and bullish control zone up there at 2080, right by those closing highs up here. So that's that white line up top there. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at traditional markets, and then we'll wrap back around to some of the things that are being requested. Specifically, yes, I'll get to the bonds. Is there a chart for Bitcoin ETFs? Yeah, the ones that I was just showing. Yeah, I don't know when you asked that question, so But yeah, like Grayscale is the Bitcoin ETF, spot ETF, and then all of the rest, but they're not really worth looking at. IBIT and HODL and ARCB and like all of those, they're just down, down only with the nice bounce now. There's not really much to chart, maybe lower term time frames. We see a new all-time high on Dow today. If it stays above the upper first, it's going to keep pushing the highs, and that is coming in now at 37,896, so 37,900. If it does drop this area, you can see that the basis band, it would have to, drop the upper first at around 37,900 and drop the low here at around 37,800 or 37,796.50. Then we can target this basis band right around these highs. It's likely going to be there at 37.7. Below there, then we're marking down probably to that lower first, lower second zone around this low. And that's between 37,450, 37.5 to around the lower second at 37,200 or so to the low there, which is 37,122. Looks good to keep trying to run its highs there. Momentum is pointed to the upside. 37,967 is the momentum pivot. Currently trading at 38,061. So looks pretty good. Let's see. We've got NASDAQ. NASDAQ painting a little bit of a swing high here, likely to confirm that today, but as long as it's above this upper first here at 17,285, 17,300, looking pretty good. Of course, there is an order block now here. Coming in at 17,346 on the low side of the open, with the wick coming in right there at the upper first. So 17,250, 17,300. As long as it's above there, looking good. It still makes the highs available if it's trading and closing candles above there. Upper second is now right at the highs there at 17,668. So we hit our primary upside target that we were talking about between this 17, I think it was 17,4 to 6 or 4 to 8 or 6 to 8. I don't remember, but I know that I called it out when we hit it. So below there, we're looking to the top over here at just around 16,969. Again, meme numbers to the basis, which is now right around these wicks at 17,900. Below there, we're looking to the new all-time, or the old all-time high as it relates to the new all-time high, rather. Coming in at 16,764. That'd be quite a drawdown, but not necessarily the first thing I'm looking for, but it could potentially paint that way. We do see bearish divergence populating up there. I'll get to that in a moment. We do have an initial cross down on the Stoke indicator here. 17,650, 644 in this case is the number to beat. Trading at 17,400, so a little over 200 points below now. So bearish divergence likely going to populate. Probably going to see convergence of RSI with the SMA here, the 12-period moving average. And that's at 17,340, so it's probably going to move up to around 17,400. Bull control zone is at 17,221. Scale midline is at 16,825, so that's down here. Probably looking at a little bit of a cool down if it doesn't immediately hold on to that 17,2 to 3 area, which is local. And the upper first, so 17,285 specifically, which will move up to around 17,350 after today's close. Let's look at SPY. That's SPX. We'll look at SPY. Doesn't really matter. They're both going to show us the same thing. Potential to paint a swing high if it closes below this hammer doji, and that is at 485. Currently trading at 47.50. Now we hit our number there to the top side finally. No, I lied. It came in 88 cents short, 49.12. We were looking for between 485 and 490, so we did fulfill that criteria, but we have not quite hit the 490 yet here. If it does drop the close open and swing, downside swing here of yesterday's candle at any point next week at this 45.39, then I'd be looking to the upper first. So upper first is going to be kind of the main area to this support here. So right around 479.98, so 480 to around 43. If it does drop that, then we can look down to the basis somewhere around 478 to 475.76 at this support here. We're likely going to see 477, 478 being where the basis ticks up to. This is nice bullish structure. We've seen this like to hang out after expansion between the upper first and upper second with deviations below that upper first. So that wouldn't be out of the ordinary. Expansion is where it's at, and it's still getting expansion. So that's what we're going to be going with here. 47 is going to be the momentum pivot. 47.73 specifically. It is trading below it, so we will see an initial cross down. The possibility of this painting like a evening star reversal is there, but only once it closes below around that 485 region. So far so good. I'd be looking for a pullback, in the shorter term, and then come back to it mid next week, and we'll see where it's at coming into the monthly open. All right, that's going to do it for the bulk of today's analysis. Let's go ahead and take a look at bonds real quick. So we'll do the 2-year. Hey, look at that. 2 years been in a big drawdown after swinging the area that we had already picked out at the highs. It didn't quite get to that 528. One of the bigger things that I do want to focus on here is the weekly. The weekly could set up for a bounce pretty soon, but it is still heavily downtrending. But until we see it bounce to a lower high and then take out, this swing low at around 407%, then we're looking at like a consolidation on the highs basically before distribution. Weekly is ready to turn back up. 421 would do it. It's trading well above there. That's going to close today. So we do see a momentum shift. We see a possible swing low being set here. Closing low is it's calling it in. I'm not going to say it's in. It's probably going to complete it next week though. Nice bounce off the bearish control zone down here. I'd be looking for it to possibly make its way up to 4.75 to around 5% again, if it can get above that weekly basis band. The big thing here is going to be the monthly though. It's hanging around the basis band here, setting up for a consolidation. Now, what you need to pay attention to is a retest of the monthly pivot, which is at 5.08%, likely going to head down to like 4.95, something like that. Somewhere around, well, actually probably somewhere around this upper first, which is currently at 4.924%. If we do start to see it drop the lower first, and subsequently that's at 3.71%, and then the wick low here at 3.55, then we can start looking for it to come back to its base here around the lower second at 3% to possibly 2.95. That'd be a big drawdown, and I would look for it to eventually lower high its way down and possibly get expansion to the downside over time. We're looking at a monthly, so that takes time. That's on the 2-year. Let's look at the quarterly. As long as it's above 4% on the quarterly, it's probably going to hang out in the upper range here. But if it does drop it, basis band is all the way down there at 2.18%. So, this is still incredibly bullish, but is ready to probably cool down. If it drops the open here at 4.09%, basically dropping, it's only got a little bit further to go to get to that 4% on a close, then we're looking for a big drawdown over time. Of course, a quarterly takes a long time, so we're looking at many, many months, possibly years. All right, if it happens quickly, quarter over quarter, then we're looking like, this was a year's worth of time here from 18 into 19, summer of 19. Nice 4 quarters, and then just straight up impulse down coming into 2020, obviously. Notice that it happened in the quarter that opened January, obviously, that ended in March. So, and we all know what happened then. And then the nice move back up, higher highs in the quarterly. So eventually I would look for this to set higher lows on the quarterly over time. Long time frame chart. Looking at the 10-year. Momentum crossing down below 4.9% on the quarterly. So still some time to go there. I do want to see it also below the moving average of RSI here. 10-year, same deal. Still in the bullish control zone, meaning it's bullish, but it does have a quarterly cross down. Typically, you don't get bullish resets in the extremes of the quarterly. So 4.62% on the quarterly. Still playing around the highs here. We'll likely see the short end of the curve lag or head down faster as the longer end of the curve hangs out on the highs before dropping. So, as long as it's above 3.66%, it's looking good, but you can see basis band on the quarterlies down there at 2.38. Momentum is turning against it. This does have a monthly high in. It's already back at the basis, getting its initial bounce. Back above 4.3%, and it's likely going to try that deeper 4% to low 5% region again. But I'm not necessarily confident that it gets there. We'll see what the Fed decides to do. Coming in towards the end of the year, I think they're going to start cutting. And we can see that just based on the charts. 4.74% is the momentum pivot on the monthly. Yes, this is turned up, but many drives of bearish divergence, and likely another one will populate on RSI as well. From the daily perspective, it is coming from the top side, 4.15%. 4.32 for the 2-year. 10-year on the weekly, though, is showing a momentum shift. But in the context of the longer-term time frames, this is more likely to be a bearish retest and then head back down. So lower high, equal highs, and then head back down and eventually wipe this low out. But it's going to take some time, like I said. Back above 4.35% at the basis, as long as it's trading above the lower first and closing above there on the weekly, that is likely going to be an area of interest at 4.35%. If it gets above there, beautiful bearish retest zone at the upper first at 4.67, 4.7%. And above there, of course, the highs again at 5%. I could see a swing of the highs. That's not out of the question, but it's very unlikely, in my opinion, based on the monthly, 2-month, quarterly, so on and so forth. But it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to see it swing the highs, but I would still be looking for this low to eventually get taken out and begin its weekly downtrend. So that is bonds for you. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Yeah, we kind of moved through things pretty quick today. How do you guys feel over there in chat? I'm going to take another sip of water here, let you catch up. What are we thinking over there in the public chats? Was that a good overview today? Feeling comfortable with it? Yeah, I can look at the 4-hour on Bitcoin. It's expansion, 77 over 40. So we're going to get continuation as long as it's staying above the upper first at 40,800. And it could even drop back to the basis here at 40,100, but like we said, in the criteria is probably going to be this closing structure over here. To be quite honest, around 40,800 by the upper first. So you want to see it hold that, preserve its momentum and expansion to the upside. Pivots at 41.3 basically right now. So, you know, a high that pulls back into higher low fashion. You know, we do already have nice swing higher low structure to a nice little compression to re-expansion to the upside. You know, it's testing. What you want to see is for it to come down and remain above at minimum 39,800 to the lower first there at 39.5. I will tell you that the implications for that on some of the higher term timeframes would not be stellar, but it would be looking more like it wants to run back to test the lows. So, thank you, Bobby. Bobby says, as always, feeling good about it. Best complete package of analysis of charts out there, in my humble opinion. Thank you. I appreciate that. Just trying to impart some of my wisdom on you guys here. And you guys do a great job too. I know, I've seen your charts. I've seen your analysis. Maybe a bit biased. Bobby says he might be a bit biased. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, there's other people that do good analysis, right? Including plenty of you guys in the chat. So I appreciate it, Baba. Baba says you're the best. Anytime, bud. I'm glad I can help provide some perspective for you guys. Look, a lot of guys in this space make this a lot harder than it needs to be, including in the traditional space. You guys watch the pundits on TV. 99.9% of the time, they have no clue what they're talking about. Yep. Excuse me. No. So Jimmy says, if you're watching the pundits, whoop, hiccups. Excuse me. Yeah, Baba says most of them get. Excuse me, I got the hiccups now. Baba says, whoop, are you gonna hiccup again? Yeah, hopefully the music can cover for it. Oh, there we go again. Damn. All right. I can't even read what he said. He said most of them get paid from the exchange. I can't even say it. Man, if I was doing the same, I wouldn't even be able to spit it out, apparently. Woo. All right, so yeah, no, it's not a vape. I've traded the vape out for the pouches. I'm trying to be healthier. I think these are called Free. Yeah, Free. Not sponsored. Not sponsored. Don't do drugs, kids. Tobacco's bad for you. At least that's what they say. It's what I've been told. Don't do it. Hey, y'all heard what just got approved in Oregon, right, Jimmy? So how many of the guys are moving to Oregon? Oh, yeah. Oh, you're all going to relocate to Oregon. Oh, it's going to make pre-market and post-market real fun, huh? Oh, God. Yeah, don't move to Oregon. Most places in Oregon are hell on earth, unless you're in the outskirts, where it's beautiful. Yeah, I don't know how they're doing it. They're just gonna combine it with their weed shops. Just come on down to the weed shop, man. Get yourself some good nose candy, man. It's all good. Yeah. To get the good weed to bring them down. Oh my God. Bobby says he's looking for flights now. Yeah, I don't know. They're crazy up there, man. Yeah, just so you know, Bobby says work-life balance. No, if these guys, in particular, Jimmy's crew moves to Oregon, there's going to be no work-life balance. It's going to be all work all the time. And these guys already work their asses off. Yeah, now, just so some of you guys that have known me for a long time and know what I'm from doing, Jimmy's got a crew of like 10 market makers under him. We're talking real, legit, Series 24 licensed market makers. So these guys work their asses off. They do good work. I know that it's often it's often demonized by people in the crypto space and even people in the traditional market space, but market makers are what make the market go. They're taking the other side of the trade. They're providing liquidity. They got to make money too. So they're not the evil boogeymen that some in this space have made them out to be. And there's more than one Steve. A lot more than one Steve. Just so you guys know, for those of you that have been around long enough to understand the Steve joke, from both ends of it, these guys know who that guy is. Not just the one here on YouTube, but the guy who originally brought up market maker theory. And they always have a good laugh about it. Yeah, it's a little bit more applicable in Forex markets because it's out of necessity though. It's because of the liquidity criteria in Forex markets. Yeah. Yeah, good old Steve. Yeah. Well, Jimmy's got like what, 12 to 20. Yeah, he's got a lot of money. Dude, Jimmy, one of these days, we got to do a podcast, and like, they got to hear your voice, and if you can provide some insight into that for these guys, I think it would be amazing. I don't know if you're allowed to, though. There's probably a lot that you are not allowed to say just because of, specifics, obviously NDAs and restrictions on sharing information outside of the shop, stuff like that. But in terms of generalities and like kind of how that job works, it would be really insightful if I could get you on. He said maybe. I could just change. We'll just, instead of using your name, we'll say Jimmy, aka Steve. I don't think, it's like I could say it to these guys, but no one's really going to understand just how, when you have 20 series, 20, that 12 to 20 on a given basis under you, that's insane. That's a lot, you guys, just so you understand. That is a fucking massive amount of liquidity that's being handled. Obviously, you can't say the amounts, but I can tell you it's a big amount. It's more than most can fathom. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna pump the brakes on pumping you up over there, buddy. All right, yeah, Steve. That's your new name. Yep. All right, so yeah, I mean, Bitcoin looks good right now in this particular move up. You want to see higher lows from here, develop and or a consolidation to compression again. So just so you guys in the public chats that are not licensed professionals, which by the way, some of you guys are better than the licensed professionals. Yeah, just so you guys know, I know for a fact, because Bobby shares a lot of his trades with me, he got in better than most of you guys, just so you know. And don't be crying about like, well, we have lot sizes to fill and slippage to consider. Yeah, you also deal in a lot of OTC, so don't give me that bullshit. He got better fills than you. Yeah. And he's been under the tutelage of myself and others in that group. So yeah, obviously there's really good dudes like Don in here somewhere. I think Don is here as well somewhere. I'm sorry if I didn't say hi to you, Don. Don's really good. Torque is really good. I know Baba's really good. Everybody that's here is really good. You know, the only people that I haven't seen share anything with me, mainly because they just show up to the streams, are guys like Spin and Sam, but they always have really good insight as well. So, you know, guess what? The unlicensed amateurs getting better trades in than you guys. No complaining. Robert says, yeah, well, if I could trade on the fucking degen exchanges, I'd get good entries in too. Yeah, I'll concede that, but I'm just gonna say that he's been getting better trades in than you guys. So you've got the amateurs competition now. They're gonna outtrade you guys. The degens are gonna outtrade you guys. They're coming for you, coming for your bags. Jimmy did ask if anybody wanted to get trained for Series 24 and 57. If you guys really do, I'd like I said, I might get some like intro to that stuff in on the channel here over time. It's not, those tests are not easy, but they're also like, for you guys in the public chats, like that kind of trading, like you have all the tools already. Like if you're doing TA and you're following, you know, generally what I've been showing you, you're gonna have success, and the rest of it is regulatory stuff. Roka says soon overtaking liquidity. Roka is a true degen. He's taught others to be degens, including myself. More of a degen than I already was. Yep. And Don too. Don put on some put up some coins too that I hadn't really looked into. And he's fairly new to this, to the channel, to the public side of things. Yeah, Bobby, you are correct. Well, we'll need to trade much more to overtake them. Yeah, let's put it this way. We could probably all pool our assets together, including myself, and we would not even scrape the bottom of the barrel of some of the size of these single trades. So when we're talking market maker trades, we're talking big, big, big money. Especially on the OTC side of things. So facilitating the arbitrage between some of that stuff you got to do big numbers to get the arb out of it that you need to meet your RM profile. Bobby says Don introduced us to all this stuff a few years ago. Yeah, no, I've had some conversations with him. He knows his shit. He's very, very good. He definitely knows his shit. Different methodology of technical analysis than myself, but obviously it is working very well for him. It's always good to get other people's perspective on the way that they perform technical analysis, because it helps inform, how you are doing yours, and it's also confluence and or counterpoints. So it's always good. It's always good to look. Even if you vehemently disagree, it's good to look. As long as you understand what it is that they are attempting to show you in their technical analysis. If it's just garbage, the crypto capos of the world, the profit blues of the world that are, clearly running some kind of a shill on the side or some kind of liquidity play on the side. There's in this space, you guys know it's a pretty short list for me. Eric Crown, MDX, the Pizzino brothers are very good as well. There's others that I'm forgetting as well. So, but very, very good. And then on the educational side, there's some really fantastic ones. Matthew Cratter from Bitcoin University does an excellent job of really just tearing apart the stupid narratives. And there's other guys like him in the space as well that do a really good job. And it's the ones that provide good tools. Your MDXs, your Eric Crown, that provide really good tools and tool sets for new traders, along with solid advice and analysis. Obviously not financial advice, because no one gives financial advice, including myself. But they really do a fantastic job of providing good platforms that are modeled after what they teach. And then you've got just really good, straight up social media analyst guys that do a fantastic job. And look, I know that he's not always right, as I am not always right, but Credible Crypto is absolutely fantastic and does a wonderful job of explaining validation and invalidations for his theories. And then he's fantastic with the wave counts. His Elliott wave analysis is really, really good, especially because he has expanded it and grown over the years to incorporate all of the other traditional aspects of it. Obviously, in Elliott wave analysis, you don't just purely use that. There's support and resistance and volatility and that kind of stuff that all goes and is kind of baked into it. But I think he does a wonderful job. Rickus, and a few others as well. And then there's guys that completely got it wrong because they overestimated their ability, that I just won't name. I can reference the battle at the border, and you can figure out one of the ones that I was talking about quite extensively that I actually agreed with quite often in the bull market, that when it turned bear for traditional markets and Bitcoin, they were completely off base. But if you can admit that you're wrong and learn from it, that's how you grow, right? You can't hate on somebody for being wrong. As long as they admit that they're wrong and understand what they got wrong and strive to become better, there's nothing wrong with it. It's more about in the moment when they're wrong and they see a counterpoint and then continue to ignore that counterpoint, and maybe get combative about it. That becomes irritating. But one request, ETH BTC, I need a quick opinion on potential higher low. On ETH BTC specifically, let's go ahead and take a look. Let's go crypto. Let's go ETH BTC. We'll use the Bitstamp chart. It's not anywhere close to being a higher low on the 4-hour, that's for sure. This is a continuation to the downside on expansion. So that is out of the question. Yes, it's in the critical zone. Yes, it could bounce pretty soon. So I'd wait for a low to be put in on the 4-hour. Swing low followed by closing low. From the daily perspective, it is up against the lower first standard deviation. It's right at the edge of the bearish control zone. But it's still got plenty of momentum to the downside below 0.06, basically. So I would expect this to maybe bounce here or there, but I would expect it to eventually run its way down to 0.05. Back basically somewhere back in the range. I mean, it might be setting up for a bounce soon, but not right now. This is fresh expansion. Need to see a swing low followed by a closing low on the 4-hour at minimum. You might be able to front run that on the hourly if you see it occurring, but I'd be careful that it doesn't, if it doesn't pass the criteria specifically here at 0.0545 on like the hourly. This is kind of where this low on the 4-hour would be set, swing and close. So I mean, it could bounce from the hourly and all the way up there and fail. So that's what I'd be careful of, is something like maybe it comes down a little bit more and whatever it does, and then bounces back up and then starts to consolidate and then run out its momentum into that 4-hour and then take out the most recent higher low and just come right back to the lows, kind of thing. That's what I'd be aware of there. You could even take a rejection at the lower side of that at 0.5431. 5431. We're only missing the 2. 54321. Yeah, it looks like shit right now. But that's to be expected. I mean, it's just Bitcoin's outpacing ETH right now. That's all. Big move for Bitcoin. Solid move. And that's what we want to see. We want to see Bitcoin leading the way. Excuse me. Holy shit. Still, I tried to prevent a hiccup. Didn't work. People just tuning in now like, man, this guy's a fucking clown. What's wrong with him? You see, near the end of the streams, yeah, I start swearing more. I think on YouTube, though, it's like within the first 5 minutes is when they start getting on you. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that might be it for today. I should have a video, whether it's a short video or a staring at charts video, up this weekend sometime. The shitty chart, the downtrend. I went, oh God, that's not a hiccup. I was trying to hold back from puking. The likes are going away too. Jeez. Swear once and the likes are just getting a dislike on here. I think somebody just logged into dislike. It's all good. All right. Yeah, that's going to do it for today. I will be back sometime over the weekend with a pre-recorded video as we come into the weekly close or shortly after weekly close. We'll see. And then, of course, I'll have a live stream on Monday. Follow up with everything we talked about today. and over any recorded video as well. So let's go ahead and set the stream up to end. I'll put this for... Yeah, you're welcome, Baba. Bobby says he needs it. Bobby is a complete degen these days, just minting ordinals like crazy. I hope that works out for you, buddy. Broketh, you're welcome, sir. And for the rest of you, thank you for hanging out. I'm going to leave the stream up for those of you that like to chart and listen to some tunes towards the end of the stream and kind of recap what we were going over. And yeah. So you have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Planty out.